पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौ शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशा शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिश्चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौ शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्व शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Sarvastaratu durgani sarvo bhadrani pashyatu. Sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asato ma Satgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayeti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. We begin today on verse number 12. So let's chant together. Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasas tamasascha ye matta veti tan vidhi natvaham teshu te mayi. All those sattvika, rajasika and tamasika states that are there, know them to be born of me alone, but I am not in them, though they abide in me. We saw in the earlier verses that how the divine is manifest in the world that we encounter around us. There is a passage in the Upanishad which says, Tat srishtva tadeva anupravishata, means having projected this universe, God entered into every tiny bit of it. So the reality is that since God is present in every little bit of this universe, we are really seeing God all the time. And we do say God is omnipresent, God is everywhere. The irony is that although God is everywhere, we are not able to see God anywhere. So how come someone who is everywhere cannot be seen anywhere? We can at least begin by trying to see God somewhere. That if we can succeed in feeling the presence of the divine somewhere, at least in one place or in one entity, then there is a hope that I might be able to see it in some more places, and eventually I might be able to see God everywhere. Sometimes, even when we are not able to see the object itself, we know it's there. Simple thing in one way, light. Now we might say, well, there is light in this room. But the truth is, no one can see light. Our eyes are incapable of seeing light. What we can see is objects illumined by light. So because I'm able to see all the objects, I know that light is there. So actually, that there is light in this room is not direct perception. It's only an inference. That because I'm able to see all the objects which are illumined by light, they wouldn't have been illumined if there were no light. So just like we are able to understand the presence of light in the room without actually seeing light itself, it's possible to feel the presence of the divine even though we are not able to see the divine itself. And according to Vedanta, we cannot see the divine. In order to see something, we have to objectify it. Any kind of a perception, I can see this object because this object is an object of my perception. I am the one who is seeing, and I am seeing this. The reason I cannot see God is because God is not an object of perception. God is the subject. God is the one who is seeing. Just like we, no matter how strong our arms are, no matter how heavy a load we can lift, the one load we cannot lift is our own selves. Why is it that I'm not talking about levitation here, but why is it that we can't lift our own selves? Because the one who is lifting and the object that needs to be lifted is one and the same. Exactly in the same way, if God is the one who sees, the Upanishad speaks of God as the eye of the eye. So if God is the one who really sees, then God can't be seen, because the one who is seeing and the object of seeing can't be one and the same. Nevertheless, just as we are able to know that light is present through the objects illumined by light, we know God is present through the divine manifesting through everything in this universe. And the verses that we saw earlier, 8, 9, 10, 11, mention a few of the things in which we can sense or we can contemplate the presence of God. Now, this verse that we saw just now says, in all these three states, Sattvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika, know that they are born of me. They all come from God. But God is not in them. They are in God. If you look at the commentary below, it gives a little bit of an explanation of what some of the primary characteristics of these three states are. Even all those Sattvika states like control of the mind and the body, Rajasika states like pleasure and pride, and Tamasika states like anguish and delusion, which result from the action of beings, know them all to be born. So all the different states that we experience in life, they all come from God, because everything comes from God. The idea is this. What the Gita is saying is, other than God, nothing exists. So if I'm seeing things, the only source they could come from is really God, because there is really no other source. Now, if they come from God, does that mean God is in them? I began by saying that after creating this whole universe, God entered into every bit of it. Now, if you take those words literally, it would seem like God is in them. So what does it mean here when Sri Krishna says, I'm not in them? I'm not in them in the sense that God is not under the control of these different states, whether it is anguish, delusion, or all these things stated by the Rajasika, Tamasika, and Sattvika states. But they are under God's control. Now, our situation at present is that we are under their control. In some ways, and think about it this way. Anger. And I've mentioned this on earlier occasions, that sometimes when you are in a group and someone is irritating you, and you are aware for a time being, I'm getting irritated now. This person is irritating me. I'm now going to really get angry. As long as you are aware of the fact that you're getting angry, the anger is under your control, because you still are aware that you are getting irritated. You are aware of your irritation. You are aware of your anger. They are under your control. You are not yet in them. They are in you, but you are not in them. But at some point, the tipping point is reached. Then you no longer are aware that I'm angry. You become anger yourself. That time, you are not just that anger is in you, you are in the anger. You have gotten so involved into it that that awareness leaves. And in that state, then we do things we later regret. We may say something hurtful, we may do something hurtful, and of course, when we eventually come out of that anger, then we suddenly say, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that. And then some people go and apologize and they try to make up and so on. So that's, I think, a good example. How, as long as I'm aware of the anger is in me, but I'm aware of it. But I haven't gone inside anger yet. The moment I go in the anger, then the anger controls me. So what Krishna is saying here is that God, the Spirit, everything comes from God. So everything is in God, but God is not in them, in that sense that God is always aware, God never sleeps, but God is not controlled by all these emotions and all these failings and all these weaknesses and strengths. While our lives we are being controlled by them. So who do we say is a person who is wise, a person who is strong? A strong person would be one who, it's not that strong people don't get upset or don't get angry or don't get irritated. They do. But the one kind of strength is the biceps. But there's another kind of strength. It's an inner strength. And that is, no matter how much anger or irritation be within me, in my heart, I will never let them control me. If I can see them, if I can always keep a watchful eye on my own anger, on my own desire, on my own, all of my weaknesses, as long as I'm aware of them, I can still handle them. But we will see that any kind of infatuations that we have, any kind of strong desires that we have, a point is reached when we no longer are aware. We become, it's like this. Let's say, my doctor has advised me, you need to cut down on your coffee, let's say, for instance. That will be terrible if doctor says it, but let's say my doctor says, you should cut down on your coffee. Maybe you should stop. This is hurting you. And so I'm aware that that's not good for me, and yet I have this strong desire to drink coffee. So because of my habit, that desire will pop in my heart. Oh, I want to have coffee. I love coffee. But then I also remember, oh no, it's not good for me. So the desire in the heart is not a problem. Of course, those samskaras are there, those mental impressions are there, that desire will come, that's fine. As long as I'm present, aware of that desire, even I may be fighting it, I might say no. The part of my mind says go and drink, part of my mind says no. And we all have experienced this kind of a tug of war within. But at some point, you will see that you stop observing that desire. You stop, it goes in your blind spot, so to speak. You see, even when you're driving, there is a blind spot which you can't see. And if you don't see, if you're not careful, then an accident can occur. So we all have our own blind spots. So our desires then, as long as they are in our vision, we are okay. We can maneuver around them. Somehow they enter the blind spot. And then once you kind of gone and picked up the coffee cup in your hand filled with coffee, that time you are no longer aware of that desire for coffee. Not only is the desire in you, you have gone in the desire. That desire is then controlling you and you don't know. And after you drink that cup of coffee, then you say, oh my God, my doctor had told me I shouldn't drink it. I'm not going to drink it again. You say that until that desire comes in your heart again. So that's what is meant by saying that they are in me, I'm not in them, but they are in me. That's what Krishna is saying. Is that clear? Okay, we'll go to the next verse. Verse 13. Tribhir gunamayair bhavair ebhis sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabhijanati mamebhyah paramavyayam. All this world, deluded by these three states, composed of the gunas, does not know me, who am beyond these and immutable. So these three states, sattva, rajas, tamas, are like a veil which hide God or spirit from us. As long as we are caught up in the veil, we wouldn't know what's beyond it. A story is sometimes said that after God, and this is a story, of course, after God created this world, if you take this, the biblical myth about creation, then God created this world and He created the first man and the first woman. And then it seems that God was very pleased with His creation. Again, I'm using a very gender specific, we don't know whether God is he or she or someone beyond it, but just for the facility of speaking. So God was very pleased that, oh, this is wonderful, and here is this Adam and Eve. And after seeing them, God thought, this is my first creation, let me give them a gift. And God loved them so much, He wanted to give them the best gift ever. That no one can give a better gift than that. And then God thought to Himself, what would be the best gift I can give? And in all modesty, God felt, well, there cannot be any better gift than His own self. And because nothing is better or superior to God. And so God said, let me give myself as a gift to the human beings. And normally we know when we give gift, we generally wrap it up in some nice, good wrapping paper and then give it. So God wrapped up this gift, wrapped up Himself. And the gift, the wrapping paper was this world. And God then gifted it to Adam and Eve. You see them as the first prototype human beings. The wrapping was perfect. Well, if God Himself has wrapped it, it will be perfect. The wrapping paper is very attractive. And so sometimes you will see children, if you give them some good gift and it's come in a very attractive package, sometimes you don't want to just kind of tear it open. It's like the package itself might be so attractive. And that's something that has happened to us apparently, that God has given Himself as a gift to entire humanity, but packed in the wrapping paper of the world. But the wrapping paper is so wonderful, so charming, so enticing that we have all been admiring it all this time. All that we need to do is just open it, and we'll find that inside there is nothing but God. So just like the wrapping paper hides the gift which is inside, these gunas, this material world, hide the spirit, hide the presence of God. So we need to get these out of the way. Sri Ramakrishna tells the story of, he says, when there are all these warehouses filled with grain, maybe wheat or rice, and so there's all these rodents, the rats and all would naturally would give anything to be able to go and feast on all that grains. And so what is said is that the owner of the warehouse, what he does is at night on the outer wall, outside the door, would sprinkle some little few parched rice and some kind of just ordinary grain, a few pieces here and there. And night, this whole gang of the rats comes and says, today we are going to invade this warehouse and take away all it. But then they find all these grains, a few grains spread out near the door, and they spend the whole night just kind of munching on it, while the real stuff remains safe inside. That's a little bit like where we are. That there are all these. There's another one imagery we find in Ramakrishna's words, that if we spend our time just admiring and evaluating fake jewelry all the time, and so engrossed into it that we wouldn't even know that some real pearls, real jewels, real precious stones just lie a little beyond. So all the joy, the contentment, the fulfillment that we find in the world is good, is great. There's no denying it's wonderful. But it's also true that all of these satisfactions that we find in this world may stop us from going deeper and discovering that there are much deeper satisfaction beyond them. That is why we have this phrase called peace that passeth understanding. What does it mean? It's not as if we don't have peace in our daily lives. Well, it may not be our peace might get shattered now and then by stress and anxiety and worries. But at least now and then, we do experience some peace in life. But that peace is very fragile. It can be disturbed. Someone comes and says something nasty to me, and all my shanti, all my peace disappears. And I'm feeling wonderful and very great, and someone comes and abuses me, or you are driving, very thinking of the Lord and thinking of the Atman, and somebody just abruptly cuts in front of you, and then finished, everything disappears, and then you just feel like cursing and shouting. So our peace and joy are very fragile. They get shaken up very quickly, very easily. But there is a peace which cannot be shaken. There is a joy. Once we get that joy, then when the greatest joy that we have experienced in our life so far would appear just like just an imitation. And that's what we need to go. And that's what he means here when he says, deluded by these three states, people do not know me, who am beyond these and immutable. Immutable means nirvikara, unchanging. The world around us is constantly changing. Change is think about it this way. If things don't change, we get bored. We say, I want something different, right? So somehow we feel that when new things come, different things come, I can feel entertained. Otherwise, I get bored. But change is not just external. Change is internal too. And which is why my happy state can get changed to a miserable state. And that gets changed to a happy state. And that gets changed to a miserable state. So change is both internal and external. And that's pretty much how our lives are. We go back and forth. Sukha, dukkha. Joy and sorrow, joy and sorrow, joy and sorrow. Wouldn't it be great if we can just have an unchanging? And in that unchanging would be joy, obviously. And I won't go deep into it now, but we have seen it before and we probably will see it again in future. But there may not be much change at all. in the midst of all this change, if we look back at our situation, it's probably unchanging. And the unchanging situation is that there is this continual sense of unfulfillment which never leaves us. We may try to cover it up with occasional celebration and occasional things, but deep down, that emptiness that people feel at different stages in life, a sense of meaninglessness, the anxiety about the future, and of course the ever-present reality of death, about which we don't even want to think about, but yes, it's there. Even if I don't think about it, it doesn't disappear. So if you keep all that at the back of the mind, not just about stress and anxiety, even when I want to know something, I know that there are limits to how much I can know. The capacity of my brain to grasp things is limited. I can know a lot, but still, I cannot know everything. So our senses, our body, and our mind are great, but they are still very limited entities. They have their limitations. So if we think about all these limitations under which we live and operate, we've got to be honest that it can never be completely satisfying. So right now, if we look at the deeper reality of our own situation at present, it is really unchanging. And that is the human state, that existential suffering that we go through. Now, this unchanging can be changed to a different unchanging. And that unchanging would be the state of freedom, the state of purity, the state of joy, the state of perfection. The only thing that separates me from that unchanging is this veil of the material world, the veil of Maya. That's what he will refer to in the next verse, verse 14. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante Mayamitam tarantite. This divine illusion of mine, constituted of the gunas, is indeed hard to surmount. Those who take refuge in me alone get over this illusion. So this is this great veil which separates us from the truth. It's called Maya. Etymologically, Maya really means that which appears to be but is not there. The question that can be asked is the veil that separates me from God, the veil that separates me from reality, the veil that hides God from me, is that veil real or unreal? You cannot say that veil is real because we have already said God is the only reality. If God is the only reality, then nothing other than God can be completely, everlastingly real. So does that mean that Maya is unreal? You cannot even say unreal because you are really seeing it. All the diverse world, all the diversity that we see is nothing but Maya. It's a veil because the reality is one. In place of the one, I am seeing many. So something has changed. So you cannot deny seeing it, but you can question its reality, because if that one if the unchangeable has changed, it either means that it was not unchangeable to begin with, because if it's unchangeable, how could it change? Or if it really is unchangeable, then that change is only an illusion. It's like this. If, let's say, you know the classic example that I mention very often about a coiled rope in a room which is mistaken for a snake. Now let's say that I myself have gone and put that rope there, and I put it in a coiled way, and then I leave the room, and then after some time I come, by that time, which time I have forgotten. Or maybe I kind of have a vague memory that I have left the rope there, and I see the snake. My first, mistakenly, in place of the rope, I see the snake. My first reaction is I'm afraid. And then I remember, oh no, wait a minute. I had left a rope there. But I'm seeing the snake. So now, is that snake real or unreal? You can only say because the rope was kept there, the only reality is the rope. And so then snake cannot be said to be real. You cannot say the snake is unreal, because if it's unreal, how am I seeing it? How can you see something which is unreal? Why don't I see a snake right here now? Because the snake, we can say, well, there is an unreal snake here, but I'm not seeing anything. So you cannot say it's real because you know it's not there. You cannot say it's unreal because you're seeing it. So it is something which is neither real nor unreal. And that is what Maya is. Neither real nor unreal. And therefore, it's not something that you can drive away with physically. Just like you cannot kill that snake, you cannot bring a gun and shoot it, because you cannot kill the snake, because the snake isn't there. You'll only end up shooting it at the rope. So the only way to get rid of that snake is not through any physical means, not with a stick, not with a gun. You just need knowledge that it's a rope. As soon as that knowledge comes, the snake disappears. Exactly in the same way, this Maya, driving away Maya, is not through any stick, not through any gun, not through any activity really. The Maya can be eliminated simply with knowledge. That which I see is not what it appears to be. Or what appears to be is not really what it is. So recognizing the rope removes the snake. So recognizing the presence of God removes this material world. Which is why you cannot see God and world at the same time. That's why people who entered into this highest samadhi, for them the world disappears. You cannot be seeing both at the same time, just as you cannot see the rope and snake at the same time. If you see the rope, you cannot see the snake. If you see the snake, you don't see the rope. It's like when you go to see a movie, actually. When you go to see a movie and say your favorite actor is in that movie, and that actor is doing some role. So a story is being enacted by actors, and maybe you are a great fan of movies. You know all the actors because you've seen the early movies that they have acted in, and so you are watching the story. Now, if you're watching the story, then if you see the character in the story, then you will not simultaneously be aware of the identity of the actor. But if you're really seeing the actor, then you cannot be equally aware at the same moment of the character that they're playing. So the two don't go at the same time. Which is why he says, therefore, this divine illusion of mind constituted of the gunas is hard to overcome. Those who take refuge in me, what does taking refuge in me? It really means seeing me to the exclusion of everything else. They are the ones who are able to overcome that illusion. Verse 15. What about those who cannot? Who are the ones who cannot do it? Verse 15 describes that. Namam dushkritino mudhaha prapadyante naradhamaha Mayaya aparita jnana asuram bhavamashritah. Wretches among men, the wicked and the ignorant do not take refuge in me, being deprived of discrimination by Maya and betaking themselves to demoniac attitude. So that's what is the idea. So if God is present everywhere, I said before, God is present everywhere, but we don't see God anywhere. Why is it that we can't see God? We can't see God because there is Maya. Why is it that I don't feel the inclination to even look beyond? So what is it? What is it that makes me so engaged into this covering and not make me want to see what is hidden under this covering? One is ignorance, as he says here. Wicked really means the fund of mental impressions that we come with when we are born may be so strong, and our will may not be strong enough to overcome them, that we just lead an instinctual life. I just do what my instincts make me do. If our life is guided purely through instincts, purely through our biological drives and needs, then there is not really much difference between us and animals. Although we pride ourselves often that human beings as being higher on the evolutionary ladder, we see that, oh, these animals are kind of not as developed as we are. Then how do we prove? How can we? It's not just enough to say, well, so many billions of years ago it happened and now we have evolved. Physically, yes, probably yes. But if I still live purely driven by my own biological needs and my psychological desires, and there's nothing there's no regulating mechanism within me to deal with these things, then I'm not really different from animals. The only way human beings can distinguish and then can rightfully say, well, I'm higher up in the evolutionary ladder, is that I may be pushed to do something, but I can pause and ask myself, is it really something that I should be doing? Is it something that is good or bad? Is it something that is in my self-interest or not? Is it something that will truly make me happy or not? If we pause and do that, we will never do anything which will make us unhappy. So, what is it that makes us unhappy in life? Why do we suffer in life? It will be very rare to find a person who says, I'm really looking for suffering. I just want to make myself unhappy. I mean, no normal person would normally say that. So everything that we think, the way we speak, the way we relate to other people, the things we do, all are done with the hope and intention and desire that it'll make me happy. And yet, many of the things that we say, do, and think about actually make us more miserable. So the only explanation that we have is that either I know what is right, but I'm not able to see it, I'm deluded, or in spite of knowing what is right, I'm being pushed to do something which is not right. And that's what is meant here by wickedness. Wickedness really means it's not that all wicked people don't know what is good. No, they know. Oftentimes they know. But there is a stronger force within them which pushes them to do things which are not necessarily considered good. And that's why then everyone says, oh, this is a very wicked person. But even a wicked person wants to be happy. Even a person who is evil wants to be happy. But those actions may sooner or later catch up with them and they'll make themselves unhappy. So it's this wickedness. Nara, the word here is beautiful. Nara adhamaha. The adhama is really means the lowest. So lowest in the evolutionary ladder, even among human beings. That's really could be one way of describing or explaining that word. So these are the reasons. My ignorance, my strong mental impressions, and a weak willpower are the things that will prevent me from not going beyond that veil, not seeing through that Maya. And the next verse then will describe, but there are other people who turn to God, who make an effort to reach out to that reality which is beyond Maya. And about those, and Krishna said there are 4 kinds of such people who turn to God. So in verse 15, he described the kind of people who turn away from God, who turn away from spirituality. In the next verse, he'll describe 4 kinds of people who turn towards spirituality. So next week, we will see that among which of these 4 categories we belong. I am quite certain none of us here belongs to the people in the 15th verse. We belong somewhere in the 16th verse, but that we will see next Wednesday. But now, if you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments about what we have seen up to this point, you're welcome.
So, Swamiji, in the last statement, you were saying that we are deluded to not know the right, or despite knowing the right, we are pushed to do the wrong. So both of those assume that we are the drivers of our own happiness or unhappiness. But in many cases,
no, if I'm pushed to do it, you could say I'm responsible for it. But if I'm pushed to do it, all that I can say is that even my resistance to it is not strong enough. So we have the power to stop ourselves from, and that's where we distinguish ourselves from animals. Although I think we oftentimes underestimate animals this way, which is really not good. But I'm just kind of giving a kind of a popular mainstream view. The idea is that if you keep, and I think by and large there may be some truth in it, although there will be some good exceptions. But if you keep, say, a food before a hungry dog, other than some exceptional circumstances, the dog is going to go and eat it. And if there is a food kept before a hungry human being, will that human being always go and eat it? It's like, I'm terribly upset, but food, so one is like my biological necessity would be like, just go and eat it, it's food. On the other hand, my mind said, no, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm not going to eat that food. So there may be still hunger, but you can say no. There could be some reasons for you want to say no. Or perhaps it's a day of fasting. You have decided, I'm going to fast today. And someone, maybe your neighbors have cooked something and all that beautiful aroma is wafting across the porch to your place. And you might feel tempted to go and eat. And you say, no, I've decided to fast, I'm not going to eat. But if I'm not able to then hold on to my own decision, that means that my body is kind of pushing me to do things which I don't want to do, but I'm not strong enough to resist it. So that's where the situation is.
Yeah. But in many cases, wouldn't we consider that it's the interpersonal, it's other people causing us happiness or unhappiness? So not just the actions we do in our world, but what other people do to us or what we observe with other people. So how does this extend further to the person next to me and the way they act to me?
No one can make you unhappy unless you allow them to do so. So it's not really true that other people can make us happy or unhappy. I think just like, as they say, you cannot clap with one hand. So yeah, sure, there can be external instruments or through the instrumentality of something outside of me, that happiness or sorrow may come to me, but there is something I'm contributing from my side. It's a little bit like, we say, oh, this virus is going around. And well, there is a bug going around. They say there's a new strain of flu going around, so many people who have had flu shots are also being affected. But even then, why is it then that not everyone is affected? Why only a few people are affected? A lot of the germs and bacteria are there all the time. But only when my immune system is not strong enough, is not able to resist it, when I allow them to enter in, then I become a victim to it. In some ways, the anger, the hatred, the jealousy, these are kind of, if you want to see, they're like psychological bacteria or germs. So other people may pour venom into the atmosphere, the hatred and anger. Now, unless I allow them to enter in me, there is no reason why I should be affected. And so, in a very real sense, no one can make me unhappy unless I allow myself to be unhappy. In the same way, no one can make me happy unless I allow myself to become happy either. Sometimes you can see someone is in a bad mood and you try to go and cheer them up. You tell them some jokes or stories, but there has to be some kind of a response from their side. Otherwise, you won't succeed in making them happy either. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
I just want to add, Maharaj, what Vikram said, and you said that flu is going on, but some few people are getting. So this is the only reason that spiritual seekers should be around satsang, like we talk about, because it does affect us if we are around the same group of people who are
right.
Spiritual seekers.
Yes, yeah, good point. So just as these kind of viruses, psychological viruses like anger and hatred and jealousy can go around, and you won't call this a virus. What would you say for something positive? Is there any positive term for a virus? I don't know. Anyway, so the idea is if you are in a kind of a holy, sacred atmosphere, or in the company of people devoted to a higher ideal. Now, they just as some people can pollute the atmosphere with hatred, anger, and jealousy. People who think good thoughts can fill the atmosphere with good thoughts, with kindness, love, understanding, friendship. So those are also floating figuratively. So now, just because they are there doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be benefited by it. Just like if unless a virus is there and I don't allow it to enter in, the virus cannot enter in. These good thoughts are there, but if I don't allow them to enter in me, they won't enter in me either. And that is why in Dakshineshwar, for instance, when Sri Ramakrishna lived, even when the avatar lived in that place, and not everyone in the temple was like, oh, I'm living in the presence of an incarnation. I'm just filled with divine consciousness. No, there were people living right around him, but as worldly can be. In fact, many of them just didn't even recognize his greatness. Again, so all those things were there in a very tangible form, even when Ramakrishna was living physically. But not everyone around him automatically were benefited by it, because again, they didn't have the receptive power. It's like also, all these electromagnetic waves, for instance, now if you want to say, see, some television program. Now all those electromagnetic waves are here, but unless I have a TV set and I have a receptor to catch those frequencies, I won't be able to see it. So that's the thing. So we need to be receptive to that which is positive, healthy around us, so that we can benefit from it. And we must have a strong immune system to close our doors to all this hatred, anger, jealousy, wickedness, so that they won't enter into us. So the problem today is that everyone wants to go and remove all hatred from the world, which is a good ideal, but what many people don't do, that first I must stop the door within me so that no hatred enters in me. So I cannot go and remove hatred outside if there is already hatred in my heart. So first, can I protect myself from hatred and anger? If I can protect myself, then with that strength, I can go and try to help others. But if my own self is filled with hatred and anger, then I'm just going to add more hatred. So how much should I hate people who hate others? And we might say, well, I'm not hating good people, I'm only hating bad people, but I'm still adding more hatred into the world. So that's the idea. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll stop here today, and when we meet next time, we will begin on verse 16. Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. We bow down to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother again and again. Next Sunday, we'll have a special puja to celebrate Swami Vivekananda's birthday. The puja will begin at 10:30. As usual, there'll be prayer, music, worship, flower offering, and prasad. So all of you are welcome. Hopefully this cold will subside by that time. Stay warm in the next couple of days. Next Wednesday, we will continue with the study of the Gita. On Saturday, we will not have Arati and meditation in order to prepare for the puja. But next Tuesday, we'll have the Arati and meditation as usual. So you're welcome for all of these programs. We'll conclude with a prayer now on page 3 of your books. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.